Alright, good evening folks, it's Enforcer Matt and welcome back to another short war video, and today we're receiving massive news out of Moldova that the breakaway region of Transnistria is officially calling on Russia for assistance after they believe they've been unfairly treated economically by the state of Moldova, and the Russians are responding to that request. So we're seeing some very big tensions break out in that region, and we're also learning that some Belarusian dissidents are announcing for the world to hear that they are planning a coup against the President Lukashenko, and they're trying to get that underway. So we got some big news coming out today, and let's go ahead and jump right into our first article, which is from Visegrad 24. And it says here, Transnistria officially calls on Russia to come to its aid amid economic pressure from Moldova, and the breakaway region organized a Congress of Deputies of all levels for the first time in 18 years to vote on it. And if you're not aware of this situation with Transnistria, it is, like I said, a breakaway region of Moldova. It declared independence around 1990 or so, and it is now really like a pseudo part of Moldova, but not really. It's really complicated, but there are some small Russian forces in that area, but they are technically independent. But one thing that's notable here is Transnistria hardly ever organizes a Congress at all, but they've done so for the first time in 18 years right now to call on Russia's assistance. And they didn't really say it out loud, but they're essentially calling for Russia to annex that territory, which is something that is quite extreme and could lead to some very bad outcomes. And we do have some reasons in mind as to why Russia may be doing this at the moment. But we can see here it's causing some tensions right here. And even in the post from Visegrad 24, they believe it's time to reestablish Moldova's territorial integrity over that territory. So obviously, it's already leading to tensions, and Moldova is somewhat panicked by this entire situation because they do have some EU accession process that they're trying to deal with at the moment, and they can't have this territorial dispute ongoing because that might hold that up. So let's go ahead and jump right into our next article of the day, which is from Fytux News. And we can see that the Russia's MFA, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, has already responded to the request for help from Moldova. And they said, quote unquote, protecting the interests of the residents in Transnistria, our compatriots, is one of our priorities, and all requests are always carefully considered by the relevant departments. And if you will recognize, that statement right there sounds a lot like the justification for invading Ukraine, which was spouted quite a bit by the Russian government before they actually invaded back in 2022. So to me, this has some stark parallels to that, which is obviously concerning, and it leads me to believe this is a little bit more than a simple propaganda stunt by Russia and Transnistria. So let me know down in the comments below if you believe the situation is actually going to break out into a much larger one. So with that, we're moving on to our next article here, which is actually from the Kyiv Post. And this gives us some context as to why this might actually be happening. So we can see here that the Kyiv Post believes that this could be indicative of a pretext to destabilize Moldova by conducting an annexation of the territory of Transnistria. It also says here, they're quoting the ISW here, that it does have a similar pretext into what Russia used before the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, which I mentioned a moment ago. And the most likely explanation that I can come up with as to why Russia would be doing this at the moment is that Russia is trying to consolidate its grip on Transnistria before it's too late, because Moldova is now progressing to join the EU, and they're potentially trying to bring Transnistria into the bloc as well. And because of that fact, that could be why Russia believes it's a paramount time now to try something on Transnistria, to try to separate them completely from Moldova, to prevent them from being dragged into the EU as well. Also, Moldova can't have that territorial dispute going on because that could hold up the process of them joining the EU. But overall, that's what we know at the moment. So we're going to have to watch the situation closely. I'm sure we're going to be hearing a lot more about this in the coming days. And this is something that's going to be evolving rapidly, I assume. So with that, let's go ahead and jump right into our next article of the day, which is from Fytux News. And we're learning that a group of Belarusian dissidents say they are planning a coup against the country's authoritarian ruler, Alexander Lukashenko, to be executed at the quote-unquote right time, according to Politico. And I gotta tell you, since when do the coup organizers actually go out and tell people, hey, we're planning a coup and we're coming for your government and we're going to get you tomorrow? Since when does that happen? Like, that to me is laughable. I'm not sure why they'd even come out and say that unless they simply wanted to cause fear. But, you know, I don't really know why they would do this. It's kind of shocking. But now Lukashenko is on a warning, and he's going to have his forces and troops ready to go, expecting a coup to potentially happen. So if this was their plot to announce it ahead of time, to try to basically put Lukashenko on warning, that was not a good idea. That's not the way you conduct a coup, and I don't think this is going to go anywhere, because now Lukashenko is going to be ready for it. And, you know, this is just laughable all the way around. But with that, we're moving on to our next post here, which is from Flash News Ukraine. And once again, we're back to that Poland grain deal situation. We're still following that. And it says Poland is negotiating with Ukraine to completely close the borders for trade in goods. And this was stated by the Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. And according to Tusk, he has scheduled an agricultural summit to be held tomorrow in Warsaw. And there he will meet with the leaders of all protesting groups and raise the issue of closing the borders. So now we're seeing a complete closure being discussed against Ukraine. So this is not going in the right direction. This is going in a bad direction when it comes to Polish and Ukrainian relationships. So I'm not happy to see this, and unfortunately, it looks like the situation is not going to be getting any better. I'm holding out hope, but my hope is sadly dwindling that they'll be able to get the situation sorted out, because it seems like both parties are really not willing to compromise to a great extent. But with that, we're moving on to our next post here, which is from the Kyiv Post. And this sort of contradicts the information we just got in our last post. It says, the Vice Prime Minister for Reintegration, Minister of Development of Communities, Territories and Infrastructure of Ukraine, very lengthy title by the way, Alexander Kubrakov, said that the Ukrainian side is not discussing with Poland the possible closure of the border. So even though Poland is saying that they're negotiating, they're apparently negotiating with themselves because Ukraine is not participating in those discussions. So there's really not much else to discuss about this. It is pretty much what it is. It's an unfortunate situation, but it sounds like the situation is devolving, like I said a moment ago. But jumping into our next article here, we have one from Nexta, and this is a bit of a different one here. We're seeing the Ukrainian military has allegedly spotted a UFO over the war zone, and a spokesman for DJI, who manufactures the Mavic drones, said he could not explain exactly what the AFU fighters captured, but he admitted that there was a technical glitch during the recording as an error message was seen on it. So this is a bit of a weird one indeed. I'm not sure what to really make of this. It could indeed be a glitch, but at the same time, I'm not sure if DJI is aware, but the drones being used in Ukraine always have some type of error message on them because they're modifying the drones and using them in a way which I'm sure the manufacturer did not intend. But we can see some weird object in this video, which we're going to go ahead and take a look at right now, that you really can't explain. So let's take a look. So you can see that they see this object in the distance, and I'm really not sure what it's about, but it is on the camera, and as they zoom in it gets larger, so it's really not a pixel glitch. But they say they couldn't see anything on the thermal cameras, and they're talking about maybe it can fire missiles at them, so they're obviously very spooked by it and wondering if it is a weapon of some sort, but there's really no explanation for it. It really wasn't moving. And it's just really strange. Like, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but this to me is a little bit odd. I'm not sure exactly what that object could be right there, but I'll have to leave it up to speculation because I don't think we can really explain it. But with that bombshell out of the way, we're moving on to our next post here, which is from Nexta. And the all and forever united Russian Federation is having some problems internally. It says the FSB was found to be secretly spying on the Defense Ministry leadership. And so much for that good old trust in the Soviet Union, or excuse me, the Russian Federation. It says an employee of the management company during a routine round of the attic found a video camera for surveillance, and it apparently was on a tripod and an antenna was attached to it. So it was a good old-fashioned Looney Tunes spy device that they found in the attic that the FSB was using. And they started an investigative check, but the FSB then owned up to it and said, oh, well, actually, that is our equipment, and sorry about that, we'll have that back. And the tension seems to be arising between the FSB and also the Defense Ministry. It says here the FSB also suggested to Putin a while back to resign Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu and head of the General Staff, Valery Gerasimov, because apparently between those two agencies, there's apparently a rivalry going on, and they're trying to take each other out politically. But really, that's not too much of a shock, because Russia can't pull anything together, and they can't even get themselves to work together at this point because they're so fractured. But moving on to our next post here, we have another one from Nexta, and we're learning that some Latvian companies have sold plywood goods from Russia and Belarus to Ukraine under the guise of products from Kazakhstan. Delphi has quoted the State Security Service as saying, and in the course of the investigation, it turned out that the trade bypassing sanctions was conducted with the help of forged documents for cargoes which were issued by local officials, and now the Latvian Chamber of Commerce and Industry office is being searched. So we have some strange business going on here with selling some Russian goods to the Ukrainians. I hope they can get to the bottom of that, but we really don't know much else at the moment. And with that, we're moving on to our next post, which goes to Apex News, and this is from Reuters, and it says the European Union should consider using profits from frozen Russian assets to buy military supplies for Ukraine, says the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. And why is this even a suggestion? Obviously, if we're making profits off the frozen Russian assets, which should be going back to Ukraine, send that to Ukraine. I'm not even sure why this is a suggestion. Just simply do it. That's the right thing to do. I'm not sure why we're once again holding money that really isn't ours, because we froze those Russian assets to punish Russia. And why is the West trying to hold on to those funds? Give them to Ukraine already. I mean, it's getting ridiculous at this point. Like, give that money over, especially since we're having a hard time getting aid, and everybody's like, oh, well, where are we going to find money to give Ukraine because we're running out of money? Well, there it is. Give it to them and stop taking it. Moving on to our last post of the day, we have one from the Kyiv Independent, and it says the Pentagon considers tapping into the remaining $4 billion in Ukraine Defense Aid Fund. And this money is supposed to be saved for reserves, but it looks like because of the shortage of aid being passed by the U.S. Congress, that the Pentagon is going to tap into that $4 billion and start using that to fund Ukraine. And I guess now is a better time than ever because this is quite an emergency right now. Russia is advancing, or they're trying to advance on most of the fronts in Ukraine, and we need to get aid to them fast. So now is an emergency in my opinion, and those funds should be used. And I think they should go ahead and tap into that money. But with that being said, that is actually our last post of the day, and I hope you found today's videos informative. And if you have, go ahead and press that like button and subscribe to the channel as well. And if you want to support us financially, which is a major help, you can go over to our Patreon page. The link is in the description below, and you can sign up and support us over there. So once again, thanks for watching. We'll see you all tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern on our nightly War News stream, and bye-bye for now.